Stephen interviews you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Stephen Interviews You. This is episode number 28, and this is a series where I sit down and have a good chat with a very special guest. And for this episode, his name would be, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Keith Mondillo.
Yep. Go ahead.
And I'm a 31-year veteran. I've been a director of athletics and head women's basketball coach at Gwynedd University. We're an NCAA Division III school right outside of Philadelphia, about 30 minutes in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Yep. Yeah. So thank you so much, Keith Mondillo, for joining me for this show. And when I read your website, when I went through your website and checked out all the details about what you've been through as a coach and as athletic director, it's been very impressive. It just jumped out at me right away. So let's get right to it. You now offer a college athletic recruiting. Could you tell me basically what is that all about, whether in a nutshell or if you want to go in great detail about it? What is that all about?
Are you talking about what I do or just athletic recruiting in general?
In general.
Well, I think it depends on what level you're talking about. I mean, athletic recruiting, when you look at it from, 20,000 feet, it looks the same. But as you get closer, Division I recruiting is different in Power 4 conference schools as opposed to mid-major to low major. And then that recruiting even gets even more niche down when you go to Division II and then Division III. The Division II and III lines are a little blurred as opposed to, a Power 4 and everybody else. There's always exceptions, but those lines are pretty definitive. I mean, you got essentially pro athletes at that level. So recruiting takes its shape and form at different stages of your career, whether you're a freshman, a senior, or a transfer going into the portal, which I'm sure we'll probably get into the portal a little bit. So recruiting, we don't have enough time in your podcast to go over, exactly what it all is, but it's a lot. And at this time, with everything changing in the landscape, from the transfer portal to the house settlement, to Division II, trying to pass a 5-year eligibility, I mean, it runs the gamut from A to Z.
Yeah. So from your experiences with college athletic recruiting, what have been some of the highlights and also some of the more challenging aspects to it? What, like the highs and the lows?
Me personally or overall?
From your personal experiences.
I think recruiting's gotten a lot harder. Before, you were able to grab that diamond out of the rough from a recruiting event that no one has seen, or maybe there's specifically talking about basketball, there might be a high school kid who doesn't play AAU that you might be able to find somewhere. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. Recruiting now is so magnified with social media, with the ability to reach out to hundreds of coaches if you're a high school student within seconds, really just hitting enter on an email. So some of those highs early were stealing really some low Division I players or some scholarship players to play Division III. The lows, that doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, nobody is falling through the cracks. If they do, I mean, those anomalies are far and few in between.
Yeah. So with that, you've spent your time in whether it's Division II or Division III, and so the school that you've coached in, that was Gwynedd University.
Yes.
The Griffins.
Yes.
Just from your experience alone, coaching that women's basketball team, um, what was that like? And could you explain to me what are some like the differences between the level that you coached in and, of course, the higher levels like Division One?
So that's a great question. And for the most part, a very highly competitive Division III team. And I'll give you an example. like New York University or University of Scranton, they beat Division One teams this year. So the University of Scranton beat Pitt at Pitt, and Pitt's a Power Four conference school. So and NYU, I'm drawing a blank who they beat at Division One, but those lines at the top level Division threes could compete easily in like a conference like the Patriot League, um, or New York University, who's won the national championship for Division three women. They could probably finish in the top two or three every year. That's how competitive they are. At our level, like I'm almost like a mid-major Division three. My starters can compete with a lot of other starters at Division One. I'm not saying they're good. I mean, there's still a difference. But once you sub, a Division One bench is drastically different than a Division Three bench. And that goes right away for like the sixth, seventh, or eighth player at a Division One school is significantly better than a Division Three or two bench player. And I think that's the biggest on the women's side. And it's probably accurate for all the other sports too. Like your starters could probably compete easily. But then once you get into the deep bench, I mean, those kids at Division One, they're all scholarshiped. Like the last student on the bench for Duke is really good, or for Penn is really good. Um, and they could definitely be a star, if not an All American at Division Three. But those bench players at Division Three, you know, they're probably not going to be able to walk on to a Division One roster. I'm speaking in generalities now. I mean, I'm sure there's always an exception to the rule, but I think those are the differences. Your starters can compete, but once you drill down a little bit lower, I think it becomes that gap becomes much wider.
Yeah. So you've spent time both as a head coach and as an athletic director. Could you break down to me what are like the similarities between the two job titles and what are the differences?
Well, I think you're both in both jobs, you're leading people and you're trying to get them to buy into what your philosophy is, whether it's an athletic department buying in, a university buying in, or your team, individual players buying into your system. And I think it's become way more collaborative than in the beginning. When I first started 31 years ago, you just made decisions, and you know, and as you grow as a coach, as you grow as an administrator, you kind of bring people in and you try and get buy-in, not for any other reason, but you want them to feel a part of the community and a part of the team, whether it's in timeouts. And I learned this early in my career in timeouts in basketball. I, I don't meet with my assistants for the simple reason of I sit down with our players and I say, Steven, what's going on out there? Why can't we get into offense? What do we need to do to get into something? Or, hey, you want to press? Do you want to do this more? And when players get that buy-in, or they're able to give feedback, whether I take their suggestion or not, they still feel heard. And I think that's the same way as an administrator. Uh, I don't care how you know, um, how we skin the cat, as long as we get to the point where we're helping student athletes out, whether it's basketball, field hockey, cross country, or volleyball. And I think getting that buy-in from your staff, because I've always said this, Stephen, and I mean this, as an administrator and as a coach, I've never introduced one of our assistant coaches as, this is so and so, he or she's my assistant. I always introduce them as, hey, this is so and so. We coach together at Gwynedd. And I think that's an important thing because um, no one ever wants to feel that, oh, I work for somebody or I'm lower on the organizational chart. They do just as much coaching as I do in practice. I mean, they're more hands-on when it comes to dealing with players and drills and different things. And I think that same way reflects as an administrator. I always introduce people who work in athletics as like, hey, this is my associate AD. We work together at Gwynedd, or or this is so and so. Here's our director of athletic communications. We work together at Gwynedd. And I mean that. Like, we legitimately work together because our athletic department could not survive and our students could not be served if the different people don't feel that they're a part of a larger community and they're all helping each other out. I really believe
Yeah.
that.
So, moving on to this topic, you served on several NCAA committees for various different things, I'm assuming. Uh, what was that like? What was all that like? I'm sure there was like different stuff that you did for all those committees. What were some of the highlights from your time there?
um, well, one of the first committees I served on, it's basically that you're part of the selection committee for the Division III NCAA tournament. I was the chair of our Mid Atlantic region, so it was fun getting to see the back end of how you select the 64 teams. Now, it wasn't Division I, it was Division III, but it's the same process. You seed teams and you try and make sure that bracket is as balanced as possible. That was fun. And that was just for Division III. But then I was lucky enough to serve 2 terms on the NCAA Women's Basketball Rules Committee, and that's Divisions I, II, and III. And my last year on the committee in my first term was the year that they moved the 3-point line back from what we now know as the high school 3-point line to what was the college 3-point line. Now it's been moved back further since to the international part. But one of the unique things was being able to affect the game at all levels. That my vote was yes, I vote to move back the 3-point line. Now there's much more to it than that, but dealing with people at the NCAA who are tremendous people. The people who run the NCAA and the national office in Indianapolis, I mean, they give their heart and soul to those student athletes and to those championships. So being able to affect the game of basketball at Divisions I, II, and III, and getting to meet those people at the NCAA, and I still talk to them today. When I'm out in Indianapolis for NCAA meetings, for whether it's the convention or something different, we always catch up and grab dinner or grab lunch together. So those were some of the big highlights.
Yeah. And speaking of the NCAA, this next question, I'm sure, will get a lot of talk from many different people, and this has everything to do with the house settlements.
Mhm.
This was a definitely a hot topic for the last couple years. It has not been codified yet officially, but what are your thoughts, Keith, on the house settlement? And do you think there are benefits to this house settlement, or do you think there are plenty of things that need to be changed?
Wow. I mean, that's a tough one because a lot of this stuff, a lot of what's going on in the NCAA right now, all the governance is really being pushed and governed by court decisions. So people, when they want to blame the NCAA for something, first of all, the NCAA is an organization made up of its members. The people at the NCAA are just carrying out what the membership has voted on. Now, that being said, court decisions for the last few years have dictated what direction the NCAA is going in, one of which is the House settlement. And so some of the benefits of that are you can pay players directly. So universities at the Division I level, if you opt in, which that deadline was just passed on March 1st, if you opt in to the house settlement, you're able to pay, and I got to check out the number this year because it should increase from last year, approximately $20.5 million directly from the school to the student athletes. So I guess that's a plus. Some of the negatives, in my opinion, are that some of the schools at the low to mid major are trying to chase that same type of experience that the power fours are able to give to their student athletes. And I think, and I did a video on this, and I think a lot of universities have raised student fees, have consolidated departments, have made budget cuts throughout the university to help pay for that. And some schools are operating in a multi-million dollar deficit when it comes to the end of a fiscal year balance sheet. And I get people argue, well, their endowments are so high. Well, you're still operating at a deficit because you're trying to pay student athletes and run a department, an athletic department at the same time. And I think that's a plus and a minus in some areas. Um, but ultimately, the for the Power Fours to be able to pay these student athletes is a plus on their end. But I do think the big negative is some of those schools that are trying to continuously chase that carrot or keep up with the Joneses. I just don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think they're going to be able to continue to do it.
Yeah. And that was going to be another question of mine, a side question, uh, because you deal with the lower divisions, Division two and Division three. How do you see it? You probably already answered the question already, but how do you see it working out for Division two, Division three specifically, putting aside all the power conferences? Is there anything to be had for Division two, Division three schools?
Um, well, this is how it's going to affect it.
Okay.
Some of the so we'll take basketball. So when you opt in, there are roster limits. So before, like a basketball program at the Division I level can carry as many student athletes as they wanted. They were relegated to scholarships, but now they're relegated just to 15 on their roster. No more walk-ons, and I do believe the designated student athlete label this year, you can carry it over from last year, but you can't designate anyone new this year. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I'm almost sure that's it. That being said, universities are not fully funding 15 scholarships. Pick your sport, whatever that roster limit is that you can fund. There's a lot of Division I programs that are only giving 11, maybe 12 scholarships, and they're holding back 2, 3, or 4 scholarships. They're just not funding them. So that now creates a little bit of a bottleneck at Division I. So we're most with the bottom end of that bench, that 11th, 12th, 13th player would be at a Division I. Well, now they're no longer there. They might carry a walk on, but that kid's not getting scholarship. So just go down the line. Those kids at Power Fours who are at the end of the bench now go to mid majors. Those mid majors go to low one. Now, where are those low one kids who maybe had gotten who maybe they were the 14th or 15th person that got a scholarship? Now they're not getting one. So where do they go? Well, they could either try and walk on somewhere that are accepting walk ons, or you drop to Division two. And then what happens? Those kids that usually play Division two that get pushed off their roster, if they're still good enough, they want to play. Well, in theory, they drop to Division three. And I say in theory because I don't have data to prove it, but I see it happening here and there where um, students at Division three are trying to level up to Division two or one. But then I see a lot of student athletes at Division one drop to two and then two to three. So I think that's the domino effect, and that's a byproduct of the House settlement.
Yeah. So about the NCAA again, in recent years, the NCAA has had issues as far as like legalities, legal trouble, going into lawsuits and things of that nature. Um, and I hear it all the time when I watch other YouTube videos about how college sports fans, not really happy with what the NCAA is doing. But in your opinion, Keith, how do you feel about the NCAA? Where do you think it's headed as far as the governing body goes? And what could be done to, if at all, to improve the NCAA?
Yeah, it's a great question. So like as I mentioned before, the NCAA is run um, by its members. It's governed by its members, and if those members that hold a lot of the cards decide they don't want to cost share or revenue share with anybody else, there's a lot of talk of them breaking away. You've probably heard that, Stephen, where
Yes, I have.
so without naming names, that people that I've spoke to at the NCAA tell me all the time that they talk about it and they think about it because I'm sure a lot of people do know this, but the CBS contract for the men's NCAA basketball tournament funds fully funds Division 2 and 3 championships in all sports. And if they decide, the Power Fours decide that they don't want to play nice in the sandbox anymore and they want to take their money and go, well, who's making up that money? So I think the answer to your question, where do I see the future? I, I don't see it in the same state as it is now. I hope I'm wrong because I do enjoy, seeing the big schools play against the smaller schools in the NCAA tournament and in various sports. I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't know if that's going to continue to happen. I really don't, because there's no way that these Power Four schools are going to want to give up the money they're giving up right now. There's just no way. There's got to be a breaking point that, like, why would UCLA want to share revenue with Gwynedd Mercy University? And I know that, and trust me, no one at UCLA has ever even probably uttered the word Gwynedd Mercy University. But in the grand scheme of things, that's what that's what's going to happen. That if, and their contract's not up for CBS for a number of years, but hey, if you have enough money, you could break any contract. And so how's it going to govern, and how's it going to work? Well, being on and hearing the president Charlie Baker of the NCAA talk about what's going on in the NCAA, and he's publicly said, we're governing, and we're on a day-to-day basis essentially doing what these courts decisions have told us to do. And I don't know when that's going to stop, if it's ever going to stop. Because right now, Stephen, if you have a student athlete who's exhausted their eligibility, but they're making so much money in NIL, they're suing for another year. And we can get into the weeds about who's suing for what and how and why, but there's multiple lawsuits of student athletes trying to get a 6th and 7th year of eligibility, because they know once they graduate or once they're done, they're never going to be able to make that same amount of money that they are right now. There are schools, with house settlement money and NIL money. These are schools that don't have major college football. They're paying their men's basketball team close to $9 to $10 million. Like, let that sink in. Like, I'm not even talking about travel budgets, meals, or coaches. I'm talking about salaries just for men's basketball. $9 million. My thing is, how's that going to sustain itself over the years? I don't care if you're a Big East team in basketball or an Atlantic 10 team. Go look at the ACC. Look at the bottom of the ACC. I mean, that's a league. That's like a coaching graveyard league, because those teams at the bottom have no shot of getting to the top. So if you're a donor at like Boston College, now I don't know anyone at Boston College, but they're very low in the ACC in basketball on the men's side. And if you're donating a couple $1 million to help with their NIL, and they're losing, they're not even making the ACC tournament, are you going to donate again the following year? Like, why, if you're a donor, why would you continue to donate on something that loses and loses and loses? So I know I'm going off on a tangent, but that donor fatigue that these NCAA schools, and you ask, what's the future look like? Well, they're going to stop donating. And we've already seen a lot of Division I schools decide we can't do this anymore. St. Francis of PA, Division III, University of Hartford, Division III. I mean, way back when, Hardin Simmons, Division I, Division III. So, and I'm probably missing a bunch of schools in the middle. St. Francis of PA went Division III. Well, St. Francis of New York a few years ago just dropped Division I athletics all in general. They can't afford to do it. So I know that's a big roundabout to your question. So I don't, if I had a crystal ball how it's going to play out and how it's going to look, I'd be lying to you if I knew the future. I really don't. It could go at 10,000 different directions.
Yeah. It's just that I bring it up about the NCAA because a lot of what I hear lately about the NCAA is like there's governance, but there's not really governance, if that makes sense.
Well, when's the last time that you heard the NCAA came down on a program and there's been a violation?
Right.
Like they're not even policing it because they're afraid if
Not
they do
enforcing
something,
it.
they're going to get sued.
Right. Yeah. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with the NCAA or any governing body for
Yeah.
college sports. Um, so moving on to the next topic, this is more of a fun question, and this has everything to do with your newly made YouTube channel. For what you do on YouTube. Um, what motivated you to start the YouTube channel, first of all? And I'm sure it has everything to do with uh, college athletic recruiting. Um, what got you motivated? What was the thing that just made you go, yeah, I want to start making videos for YouTube?
Well, um, selfishly, after 31 years or 30 years of just helping families, hey, Keith, um, how do we email a coach or how do we get in communication with a coach? I heard the same 5 or 6 questions. When to email, what to say, when to say it, how to say it. My wife said, "Well, why don't you just start a side consulting business?" And so I did research for about 2 years, just figured out what I needed to do. And the one thing that came up consistently was you have to get on social media and you have to give your customers or future customers or just people in general just value. And the largest search engine in the world is Google. I think the second is YouTube. And I mean, even people that are on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, when they want to look something up, where do they go? Or how to do something? They go to YouTube. So YouTube seemed like a um, easy starting point for me. And like we talked about earlier, it was really difficult looking at a camera when there's no one else in the room and you're trying to talk to this camera like it's a person. Um, Thank God for editing tools because you could start and stop and you can retake something 10,000 times. You could just pick out your best one. Um, and it's kind of funny, be, as a coach, if you're great, one piece of advice I got from a guy named Speedy Marsh used to coach LaSalle University men's basketball team. He said, Keith, and I was a young coach, if you're getting into coaching to make friends, you're going to be in the wrong business. And if you get into coaching to be aware, concerned what other people think of you, you're going to be in this business for a year. And I felt that's way with YouTube. There's going to be some haters out there, but it's fun. Like I get to edit, I get people's comments, I get more DMs and direct emails. So I started it to help grow my business. And again, I'm not even a year officially into it. Because I actually have a real job as a basketball coach and director of athletics. So I kind of do it on the side. But you know, when a video like here's what the ultimate prize is. Last year, when the DSAs came out, the designated student athletes, not a lot of people had no clue what that meant. And I did a couple videos on that popped off a little bit. I had families and I helped some families essentially educate them on how to get your athletic department and or coach to designate you as a student athlete. And it, maybe about 6 people directly I could think of that their coaches are like, oh, yeah, no, you're a DSA. I had some Division II coaches watch that whole series so they can recruit kids at Division I level. I had some high school coaches who have Division I players all the time watch those videos. So why I started it is probably different now why I continue to do it. It's not because I want to be on YouTube. It's because I'd like to think I'm trying to give value and give an insight that a lot of families don't hear, don't know. And I say this all the time. If you're a Power 4 recruit, if you're getting multiple offers at Division I, my content and my business is probably not for you. I mean, I'm speaking to the masses because the biggest division out of 1, 2, and 3 is 3, and then the second is Division II. So that combined makes up almost 65 to 70% of the NCAA, and those are the people who I really want to reach. It's that kid who wants to play field hockey in college, but doesn't know where to begin. And I'm hopefully my content just reaches them and helps them along the way.
Yeah. So about your YouTube channel, what are some of the topics that you really like to talk about? Like anything that really just catches your attention, whether it be like something happening in the news for sports, anything
Well,
that comes across your desk.
well, it's funny because everything that my business is about, teaching student athletes and families how recruiting works, they get the least amount of videos. I mean, about views on my videos because it's boring. When I did something, I stumbled across it, and I did it on Rutgers University and how they reported millions of dollars in this year in a fiscal year in a loss from their athletic department. Didn't even really think anything of it. And I kind of just reported what was out publicly, and I gave my opinion like, how's this sustainable? How are they going to continue to do this? And then the first thing that popped off was when I did a piece on a football Division I football student athlete who was being sued by his previous university because he left to go to Missouri to, and they were suing him for the money he didn't earn in his NIL, that they were trying to get that back. That went viral. That went crazy. People were going all over. It was the University of Georgia. They sued a student athlete because uh, he didn't fulfill his back end of his contract. And you talk about people having opinions on that. I was laughing at some of the comments. We had SEC schools fighting with each other, their opinions. So I think it was what was going on in the court system. The 5 years of eligibility were fun. And then, this isn't fun, but talking about Division I schools that can't afford to do what these other schools are trying to do, and how either they're going to have to change how they spend their money, or they're probably going to close. So those are some of the things. Again, the last part was, it's not fun to report that, but it's just interesting how decisions are made at university levels and why they make
Yeah. So talking about football, because we've mentioned it a lot throughout this interview. Um, your honest opinion about this, Keith. The success of college football, it has been successful no matter what level it's been, especially Division One. When it comes to the lower levels, though, Division Three, do you think that? Let me see how I can phrase this. Do you think that Division Three football has a bright future ahead of it? Um, Not just counting in the economics, but is there something that can be sustainable with specifically the sport of football for Division Two and Three?
Well, Division two and three, especially at Division three, um, a full roster is really a healthy enrollment for the university. And they use those rosters to help build their admissions numbers, which I get. I mean, that's not unique, and people know that. But, and I believe, and I don't know the student athlete's name, he was the quarterback this past year at Christopher Newport, and he graduated. I think he had a year left. Well, he signed with Penn State. So, again, I don't know the Penn State depth chart in football right now. Well, he's going to, so we have a Division three student athlete who might level up twice, if not three times, if you count Power Four. He might get snaps next year in the Big Ten. I did a quick piece. It was part of a video where a bunch of Division two student athletes are now have signed with Power Four schools. And the young man who was the quarterback at Ole Miss was a Division two quarterback. So yes, I say this a lot in some of the videos and some of the things I teach. You might not be a Division I player now. Your window might be closed now for whatever reason. You're too small, you're too short, you're not in great shape, you haven't developed yet. But in a year or two, that can completely change. And then that Division three athlete who puts up big numbers and physically is developed, pick your sport, can easily level up and play Division one and get scholarship, maybe get a small NIL deal, maybe get some money in a school that has opted in. So I think there's always going to be that carrot that is in front of some of these student athletes, and that they're just going to constantly chase it, whether it's going to be their freshman year or their last year at their Division 2 or 3 school. I had student athletes last year. They were hoping that fifth year of eligibility was passed. These are students who weren't even averaging double figures at Division 3 basketball, and they thought they had a shot of getting scholarships at Division 1. So yes, so I do think not only from an enrollment perspective for Division 2 and 3, but the high end student athletes can easily level up, and we've seen examples of that just in the past year.
Yeah. So the last question that I have for you before we start wrapping this up would be, what advice would you give to anybody, no matter how old they are, no matter what their situation is? What advice would you give to anybody who's looking to basically break into the business of college sports, no matter what it is, whether it's to be a head coach, whether it's to be an administrator, or even a play-by-play announcer for a school? What advice would you give them?
You have to be willing to do the dirty work first. So before I broke in, and I got really lucky. I mean, extremely lucky. I mean, I played Division 3 basketball like in the city of Philadelphia, and I knew people. And it's not what you know, it's really who you know. And some people gave me opportunities young, but I mean, my first year out of college, I didn't know I wanted to do this. I thought I was going to be an attorney. I worked for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in Center City, Philadelphia, and I coached part time. But then I was asked to be the part time intramural coordinator at my alma mater, which is Arcadia University, and I did that at night for a year, and I got that on my resume. And then I helped out with other things, and I got that on my resume. So when it came to applying for the assistant AD job, I played, and I had all these things with part time coaching that were on my resume that enabled me to be a candidate. And at that point, once you get in the door, once you get your foot in the door, it's up to you to keep the door open for you. So I do think whatever level. And here's one thing: I was on a panel of athletic directors last fall, and the old athletic director at St. Joe's University, his name's Don DeJulia. He said something that was so true, because there was a bunch of business students in the room who all wanted to major, most of them are sports management majors. And he said, the job you're going to be applying for doesn't exist right now in the NCAA or at a college athletic department. Because think about this: 5 years ago, would we have an NIL coordinator or a general manager in college athletic departments? The answer is no. Like prior to the pandemic, who would have thought? 10 years ago, Stephen, who would have thought that sports information directors would need social media coordinators in athletic departments? So, getting back to your original question with some advice is, be willing to do the dirty work first, and don't be embarrassed by it. It creates who you are, and it gives you a good foundation to move on. And quite frankly, I wasn't willing to do this in basketball as a coach. If you're willing to move, jobs will open up everywhere. If you're pigeonholing yourself to a region or an area, you're gonna have a tougher time. Because our men's basketball coach this past year, he was with us for 20 some years. He left, and he's at a Division 2 school, and he's very successful at the Division 2 school. We had just under 200 resumes in less than 2 weeks for his job. And I cut it off, because at some point you have to start, interviewing people. If we kept that search open search for another week, we would have had close to 300 resumes. Now, men's basketball is a popular position, but if our director of athletic communication leaves tomorrow, I'll get 100 resumes before I even advertise it. So be willing to do the dirty work. Be willing to move if you can afford to move, because then it just opens up regions for you that you never would think would be possible for you to work at.
Yeah. So For those of you watching this, I will
Right.
provide a link in the description box below so that it will take you to Keith's website, keithmondillo.com, and it will tell you everything you need to know about what Keith offers for collegiate athletic recruiting. And also, I will also provide a link to his YouTube channel so you can check out the video content that he provides there. Uh, Definitely a wealth of knowledge for those of you that really want to know more about NCAA related topics, college sports, you name it, he's got it. So, Keith Mondillo, thank you so much for being my special guest on this show. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on college sports. I really do appreciate it. And again, guys, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, click the notification bell so you can get updates on new video content that I make for my channel, SCV Castle. This has been episode number 28 of Steven Interviews You, and we'll be back with more content soon enough. Take care, guys.